Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse 27. The Pandavas retire timely. It's a very powerful chapter. This is the chapter, just a quick recap, that Arjuna, this is right after Lord Krishna departed from the material world, the planet, and Arjuna has lost his powers and he is coming back to his brother and he's sharing all his memories and, walking down memory lane, reminiscing and realizing that without the Lord, we are nothing. So we're going to continue with this wonderful chapter. When the Pandavas retire timely, we're happy to have Vrindavaneswari Radhika with us. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance as August Prabhupada.
Please accept mine, all glories. Good morning, everyone.
Happy spring. All yours.
Thank you. So we'll get started. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astatari Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astatari Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Sikhaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakan Radhakan Girdhar Govardhan Ki Jai Mayapurdam Ki Jai, Vrindavadam Ki Jai, Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol. All glories ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories ye Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pacharane Nirvisheshashnunivadi Pachata Deshatarane Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Naraskrita Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Tajodayam Madirayat Nastapraya Shirabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So good morning, everyone. We'll chant this verse. I'll chant this 3 times and then we can all take turns. Desa kalartha yukani hrita potpash shamani cha haranti smaratas chitam govinda hitani me. Desa kalartha yuktani hrita potpash shamani cha haranti smaratas chitam govinda hitani me. Desha kalartha yuktani hrita popashamani cha haranti smaratas chitam govinda bihitani me. Anyone else like this chant?
Desha kalarta yuktani hreta popasami nicha haranti smaratas chettam govinda bhitani me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else want to give it a shot?
Nitya Gopal, we can hear you, Prabhu.
Okay.
He's been having some
While
mic
his-
issues on his
While
phone.
he's getting his mic fixed.
Can you
There you
hear me
go.
Oh,
now?
there he is.
Here you are.
देशकालार्थयुक्तानि वृत्तापोपशमानि च हरन्ति स्मृतिश्चित्तं गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? One more?
देशकालार्थयुक्तानि वृत्तापोपशमानि च हरन्ति स्मरतश्चित्तं गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll do word for word. Desha, space. Kala, time. Artha, importance. Yuktani, impregnated with. Hrit, the heart. Tapa, burning. Upashamani, extinguishing. Cha, and. Haranti, are attracting. Smarata, by remembering. Chitam, mind. Govinda, the supreme personality of pleasure. Abhihitani, narrated by. Me, unto me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Purport. Herein, Arjuna refers to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord. The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita, and with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to 1, the Supreme Lord, 2, the living being, 3, nature, 4, time and space, and 5, the process of activity. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter, displaying the interaction of 3 different modes: and the eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matters are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature, and time and space are eternal, but the living entity, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is the supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the supreme quality. Thus, it can cease its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have the sense of identification, of being conscious as a living force. But the living being, under the condition of material nature called Mahat Tattva, misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception, and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is the distinction of the 2 identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita stands on this principle. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatana, or eternal, and the Lord's abode, far beyond the material sky, is also described as Sanatana. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatana existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatana Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification, and the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called, in different stages, fruits of activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to transcendental realization. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all of the above items in relation with the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being, as directed in the Vedas, can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to the stage of knowledge. The purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called jnana, or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in the devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter and proves by all reason and argument the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, that are the outer covering of matter, the body, and the mind change for another term of material existence, which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge, which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. Om Gyana Tamaranjashya Kinanjana Shalakaya Taksha Unmalatamena Tashme Shri Guruvena Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Mayam Dadadis Vadvadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhaktivinda Nam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Dasai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Charaswaramaniti Namane Snekta Jeta Surpaneta Bhagvanam Charasaplutam Prabhupada Gatapanam Bhakti Charapanam. So I'll read the translation again. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So, wow. Srila Prabhupada packed a lot into this purport. He pretty much gave the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And this, we can kind of break this down in section by section, but I wanted to really first touch on the point that what is said here actually in the translation, that now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So there's in Bhagavad Gita, it's said that one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. I declare that he who studies the sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So Krishna's saying here in the Bhagavad Gita, this is reflected in what Arjuna is saying as well, that really the Bhagavad Gita is really encapsulates all that we need to know. And those who truly study the Bhagavad Gita and hear the words of the Lord are most dear to the Lord. So it says, there's no servants in the world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. And so, who studies the sacred conversation of ours worships me by intelligence. And so when you kind of unpack this in the Bhagavad Gita to look at how Arjuna is receiving this, Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, text 73, my dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free of doubt, and I am prepared to act according to your instructions. So what has happened here is that Arjuna received this wisdom from Krishna. If you remember early in the battle, when he was looking out along the battlefield and he was had Krishna pull the chariot closer so he could really identify the members of his family and his friends and cousins that he was about to go into battle against. And he was very bewildered. He was lamenting, right? He was lamenting. Lamenting is not a good thing, right? We don't want to lament. And I actually got in this conversation the other day with someone to say, like, in life, if we can have sadness, we can have sorrow, but lamenting is a whole different animal. If we're lamenting, we are ruminating, we are stuck, we are, oh, woe is me, why is this happening to me? And that's not a place where we want to go, right? Ever. And especially in our spiritual life. So lamenting does not provide any benefit to us. And Krishna points this out to Arjuna. He's like, this lamentation, this is not befitting of someone in your position, right? And so you can see the state of mind that Arjuna was in. But what is Arjuna mirroring? He's mirroring us. He's helping us to see this state of mind that we as jivas can get into in material activity. So Arjuna is providing this beautiful example for us and providing this mirror for us to be able to see. We can say, like, oh, Arjuna's lamenting, he needs to follow the Lord. But if we really open ourselves up to reflect and see this as a mirror for our own sufferings and our own difficulties in life, we can really see how Arjuna's receiving of the Bhagavad Gita is really for us and for our benefit, because Arjuna is really reflecting to us what we suffer and the difficulties that we have. Now Arjuna is a great soul. Arjuna has Krishna standing there to guide him through this. So in modern society, not so easy, right? We can't look to the left of us or to behind us and see Krishna and ask him questions, right? So here Prabhupada is reminding us that we have the Bhagavad Gita. So while we do not have the physical, the form of Krishna here next to us to advise us, we have Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita is potent. There's potency to that because these are words spoken by God. And there aren't so many scriptures out there that are actually the words of God. Bhagavad Gita, the song of God. So we know this is Krishna sharing and imparting all of this knowledge onto Arjuna, because Arjuna is a representative of the jiva. He's a representative of the spirit soul, us that are suffering. And he, as a representative of all that are to come, right? He is a receiver. He's that teacher. For as a representative of the receiver of this knowledge, he is taking on that role of receiving Krishna's wisdom. And he's also, what he's doing is he's helping us to see the value of it by saying that now you have dispelled all of my illusion. Your words have completely dispelled my illusion. I am now clear. I know what to do. And this is powerful. I mean, how many things out there in the material world completely dispel illusion? Usually they add to the illusion, right? Most of the things out there in the material activity, we read a book, a fiction novel, we watch a movie, we, go out and interact, just on a very mundane level, which is fine, right? We're just all in material bodies doing our best to sort of kind of balance material and spiritual life. But how much does that dispel our illusion? It probably doesn't. What dispels our illusion is really connecting with Krishna and connecting with the wisdom of Krishna through this text. And Prabhupada even put it in here for those who are not on this specific path. Prabhupada even put in here any bona fide scripture from God. So it's not just the Bhagavad Gita, it's other scriptures too that are bona fide, that are the words of God. And so we have opportunities here to really know what God's wanting of us, because he's made it so simple. He's made it so accessible for us. And so now, like I said, in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, my illusion's gone. I've regained my memory by your mercy. Well, where did his memory go? Why did he have to regain it? What did he forget? What did Arjuna forget? He forgot his relationship with the Lord. He forgot who he was. He forgot that he's a spirit soul. And that is the illusion that we're getting covered over by. When we forget who we are, not who we are, I'm Vrindavaneswari Radhika Dasi, or Wendy Romig, who was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I know all of that stuff. Hopefully I don't forget it, or else I have more serious problems. But that memory there, right? But what a lot of us do forget, and this is part of us, what we do as a movement is we're going out to help people remember who we are, is we are part and parcel of the Lord. We have the Lord's energy in our hearts as the Paramatma, Chaitya Guru, right? We have this already in our hearts, this spark of energy that is God, and we have our own spirit soul. So we actually have two right next to each other, right? The two birds. So if we ever feel that we're alone in this world, all we have to do is turn within and say, I am never alone, because I have Krishna in my heart. I have Chaitya Guru in my heart. I have and if we have Prabhupada in our heart, we have, our spiritual master. If it's not Prabhupada, but someone, some other spiritual master on our path, or whomever, we have that in our heart. So we are not alone, but we have to remember that. And that's the hard thing, because like I said, it's this world is designed to cover us over. That is the job of Maya. Maya is still part of Krishna. Maya is just the external potency of Krishna. And the external potency is creating this material energy for us to forget all of this. Right? And I just very much love this aspect of Maya, though, is that she can become Yoga Maya. And I talk about this sometimes in class, because I think it's just such a beautiful it's such a beautiful dichotomy of the two sides of the coin, that Maya and Yoga Maya, Mahamaya and Yoga Maya are one and the same. It just depends on which direction we're looking, right? If we're looking deeper into the material energies, Mahamaya is like, hey, I've got you covered, no problem. I'm going to help you engage in material energies. No problem. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to make it a smooth ride for you. You're going to be now bound by the modes of material energy, because as soon as you're engaging with Mahamaya, you're now engaging with the modes of material nature. And what do the modes of material nature do? They befuddle us, right? They bewilder us, because the modes of material nature, as we know, Krishna told us in Bhagavad Gita, that the modes of material nature are constantly fighting for control over our life. They're constantly fighting for control over our mind. And that's not an easy thing, because even Arjuna admitted, dear Lord Krishna, but the mind is flickering. It's harder to control than the wind. So how can we then, if Arjuna is saying this and Krishna's agreeing, yeah, it is, that the mind of the jiva is very difficult to control. So then what? Where does it leave us? Well, we look to material energies. We're turning to Mahamaya and we're saying, hey, take me deeper, right? If we make that choice, then Mahamaya is going to say, no problem. Then she's going to say, but you're bound by the modes. We've got the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, the mode of goodness. And we know even the mode of goodness has trappings, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, we know the trappings of the modes are very tricky. And yeah, everyone can say, yeah, mode of ignorance. No kidding. Of course, there's trappings in the mode of ignorance, right? But we sometimes lose sight of the fact that the mode of goodness has trappings too. And the mode of goodness can lead to pride, it can lead to false ego. So we have to be very careful, even in the mode of goodness, that we can get stuck and it can actually pull us down then. And that's where when we think we're in the mode of goodness, when we start saying, I'm in the mode of goodness, that's a problem. That might be a red flag right there. As soon as we start saying, oh, but everything I do is in the mode of goodness, that we might want to then check ourselves and say, okay, leave the ego at the door, leave your pride at the door, because now we need to take a step back and say, now I've been entrapped. Mode of goodness got me again. The modes of material nature entrapped me. And so, but what Krishna tells us is that we have to be even above the modes, which is transcendental. That's not an easy state to come to in these material energies. And so what we do is we try, but we try not with our ego. We don't try by, wrestling ourselves to this position, clawing, as they say in corporate world, clawing your way to the top, right? Climbing the corporate ladder. So there's the yoga ladder. Yes, we know about the Patanjali's yoga ladder and the Yoga Sutras, right? So there's the different stages to get to nirvana and samadhi. But that's not the ladder we're climbing anyway, because we know that the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are only going to get us so far. We eventually still have to come back and do it in a devotional way. So, but we can't claw our way to the top in devotional life. We have to be sincere in that process and really take that inward look, to really look at the wisdom within the Bhagavad Gita, to see, what is Krishna really telling me? What is Krishna really trying to communicate to me? And this is where we can turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find those answers for ourselves. But it's done submissively. And I know, the word submissive is a tricky word, especially in the modern society, that submissive is a bad thing, right? We don't want to be submissive. Submissive means we're a doormat, someone's taking advantage of us. But when we think about listening submissively or reading submissively, what we're doing is we're reading without any preconceived notion of what we're going to get from it. We're reading it because we're taking it internally, we're rolling it around in our heads, letting it seep in, and then we're reflecting. Doesn't mean we can't ask questions, right? Because it's the nature of the spirit soul to want to question and challenge. And Prabhupada even encouraged people to use their intelligence and to ask questions and challenge, because this can also dispel illusion. Because if we walk around thinking, just taking something for granted without asking a question to clarify something we've read, and to get that answer from someone that has the knowledge to be able to impart that wisdom, that can help us to understand better what we're reading in Bhagavad Gita. But the Bhagavad Gita, when it's approached in a submissive manner, it means that we're coming there to really, truly develop a relationship with Krishna. That we're not coming there for some other gain. As soon as we come there for some other gain, like, I'm going to get on top, I'm going to get some yogic powers, right? Like, that's my thing. I want to get some yogic powers. I want to be on top of this whole spiritual game. I'm going to crack this code. It's not about that. And honestly, I hear it. Like, even, in our own movement, I hear, I've heard people talk about mystic powers and, being, this, seeking out this pure devotional level, which is good, it's a goal, but, really striving for it and getting mystic powers as a result. I'm like, well, then that's kind of a more of a, ego driven purpose in reading the Bhagavad Gita and studying the yogas or studying the sutras, studying the, all of the scriptures. If we are going submissively, we're not looking to gain anything from it. What we're looking to gain is a deeper love of God. And with love, we're not looking for control. We're not looking for power, right? Love is in itself a very giving process, not a receiving. It is receiving, but it's giving too. So we're in that process of learning to love God even more, learning to love Krishna even more. So that's the submission. And the submission is also to understand truly where we are. When we're reading Bhagavad Gita, Krishna lays out everything for us. So when we're reading Bhagavad Gita and we're taking it in ourselves to reflect and say, hey, wow, maybe I do have some areas that I do need to work on, and wow, this is really hard for me right now. And I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to reflect and I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask for Krishna's guidance. I'm going to speak to my guru if we have that opportunity, or speak to a senior devotee and really work through this, because the Bhagavad Gita is giving us all the tools that we need. It is the jewel of the Mahabharata. Why is the Bhagavad Gita in the middle? It's the hidden jewel in the Mahabharata. But it is really the encapsulation of all the spiritual knowledge. It is the crown jewel. It's the most valuable jewel of the Mahabharata. So it really does give us everything that we need. It is truly a handbook, if you will. It's a handbook for life. And if we follow it as such, because we'll be fine. Krishna even gives allowances for people like me who are always struggling. Krishna gives allowances for that, to say, like, okay, well, if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. Just keep trying, keep endeavoring. The more that we endeavor in this process, the more that we will make progress. But we have to keep endeavoring. We have to keep enthusiastically endeavoring, but submissively approaching the knowledge and the wisdom. And so here in this purport, like I said, Prabhupada gives us like just a really beautiful encapsulation. I feel like this verse alone could just be studied for months to really just pull out what Prabhupada is saying here. It's something that could even be very nicely shared with some new people, because it just provides such a beautiful summary without getting too deep in the weeds with some of the more technical knowledge. It pulls out some of the basic understanding. When Prabhupada is telling us activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature, right? So these are the modes. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. And then he talks about the Lord and the living entity, how it's that achinta bheda bheda tattva, right? He's saying the simultaneously one and different. How's that possible? This is always this thing that can be very confusing. It's simultaneously one but different. Well, he's one and different because he's one because we have that spark. We have that spark in our hearts that's there. But he's different because he's God. He's the source. So this is how we can be one and different with all of energies, all of the material and spiritual energies, because he's different because he is the source of it all. He is the beginning. And he's the end. He's the Alpha and the Omega, but he's truly the source of everything. And he's separate in the sense that there is no other Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is just the one. But when his energies are expanded, then because the energies contain small parts of the totality, with the energies that we possess of God within us, we all, are part and parcel of God. So we possess in the minute quantities all of the qualities of God, but in minute quantities. So then we have that sameness in that, but it's only in fractional stages, in fractional amounts to the whole. And that's the process that God is here. He's different. He's the same, because we are part and parcel of God, we're always connected. Yet how can we feel so separate from him? If we're always connected, why do we, feel so separate? Why do we suffer so much in this material world? Well, this is the coverings that keep us clouded, keep our vision clouded. And so when we identify with our bodily features, when we identify with ourselves as just this bag of bones, then we're forgetting that actually this bag of bones is illuminated by something. It's illuminated by a spark of energy, which is the spirit soul. And Prabhupada talks about this so often, that the spirit soul is indestructible. It's eternal. It's wonderful. It's amazing. The soul is amazing. But it's there. It's illuminating us. But it's so tiny. So tiny. And right next to the soul, we have God. But yet we forget that we have this relationship because it's just a spark. But that spark can grow into an inferno when we really connect and we allow that to be who we are. So we allow that, we take those steps toward that spark. We take those steps toward that understanding of our true identity by doing some devotional service, by chanting, by praying, by remembering, Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? This is we hear, we chant. These are the things that can help remind us. They shake the dust off. When we do kirtan, we're shaking the dust off of the heart because it's a sound vibration. When God, uttered the words Om, that this is a sound vibration. These are the sounds that really brought the world into being, these sound vibrations. So God is in sound. Krishna, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is sound. It's a sound vibration. And what does vibration do? If you ever hear someone hit a bass chord, my husband's a bass player. So you have someone hits like a really low note on a bass, like boom, and everything's shaking. My husband will do that sometimes. He'll just go downstairs and start hitting chords and the windows are rattling. I'm like, where you live in a 150-year-old house, I'm like, you're gonna break the windows. But that sound is a vibration. That's why the two words go together, sound, vibration. But what does vibration do? It shakes things. It's shaking us up. It's shaking the dust off our hearts. It's shaking us free of this illusion and helping us to remember who we truly are, that we are part of God. So in this process of hearing, chanting, remembering, then we gradually come to the place of this Sanatan Dharma, right? This is what Prabhupada talks about in the last paragraph, this Sanatan Dharma. And this is the eternal Dharma. And this is really what we are striving for is to position our lives in such a way that everything that we're doing is helping us to remember God. Everything that we're doing. And this is getting back to the Maharaj Ambarish, because he's such a beautiful example in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I often refer to him because he is that perfect example. He is that perfect example of carrying out that Sanatana Dharma, because everything he does to help him remember the Lord. The steps he takes to the temple, his eyes in looking at the beauty of the deities, his hands in decorating the Lord, everything he's doing, his mind is engaged in remembering. So then, if we're working toward that end, and it takes process, it's a process that we situate ourselves in our lives as best as we can, gradually, to create an environment that helps us to remember God. And maybe it's at work, we have pictures on our desk. Maybe if we're able to listen to kirtan while we're working, if we're not on calls all day, I'm on like Zoom and Microsoft Teams like all day, so I can't do that, but I have pictures, going out into nature. For me, nature is a great way for me to feel very connected. We live by 40 acres of a land preserve, so I go down there, chant some japa, I go for a long walk and just take in the smells and the trees and the natural environment. So the things that we do to help cultivate these kinds of this kind of process, doing kirtan with loved ones, the more that we can, even just if we enjoy music, my husband and I are both musicians, we love music, so we love to do kirtan together. And that's one of the things that we do to try and remember. And raising my hand as guilty as charged, I struggle to remember. It's not easy. I'm very forgetful of who I am. And so adding these things into our lives that can help us to not forget, and to help us to not add illusion into our lives, but to slowly dispel that illusion. That is really, those are the tools that we want to try and engage with. We want to engage with those tools that are going to help us not pull us further away, if that's our goal. So assuming that that's our goal, because if it's not our goal, like I said, Maya will happily engage us otherwise. We have to want it. We have to endeavor enthusiastically. Without the endeavor, there will be no progress. With an endeavor requires a goal, right? So we've got the sambandha gyan, we've got this prayojana sambandha, this, what's the goal, the relationship. We need to have that goal in mind. And so if we have a goal to increase our love of God, if we have a goal to really increase our understanding of who we are, then we'll start making decisions that'll achieve that goal. Just like if you have a goal that you want to have $100,000 in your bank account, are you going to go out and start racking up credit card debt and, buying like a $50,000 car? Probably not. You're going to make decisions that are going to get you to the goal of having $100,000 in your bank account, which means saving, putting money aside, less spending. And we do the same thing in our spiritual activity. But we can take that for granted. We may show up to class, we may chant our rounds, but unless we really meditate on the true goal, we might be flailing a little bit. So I encourage you all to really set a goal for yourself, as we might in any other thing. I want to get a job, I want to get this, I want to get that. If we really set the goal of, I want to love God, I want to know Krishna better. And if that becomes our goal, then the things we do in our life will then line up to make that goal reality. So I'm going to take a break here since we have a few minutes left and open it up for any discussion.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. It's a wonderful nectar flowing continually. Feel like, keep listening, keep listening. Thank you so much for a wonderful brilliant class. Really appreciate.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Let's go. Yeah, Mataji has to run, but Parikshit Prabhu back from his medical appointment. Mataji asked me to take over. So please unmute or raise your hand. Go to meet with questions. Anything you have to share. We really appreciate.
Okay, and Prabhu, your microphone's a little bit verbally.
Also not able to, but that's a problem. Yeah. Give me a second if I can able to fix it.
No worries. So if anyone has any comments or thoughts or reflections about today's class, there's definitely, I encourage you to go back and read today's purport if you have the opportunity, because it's very rich with just a nice overview from Bhagavad Gita. And like I said, I think it provides us with really nice reflection points, but also talking points if we're in a situation where we're trying to explain the Bhagavad Gita to explain Bhagavad Gita to someone new or newer. And Gita, yes, I hope Prabhu is feeling better too. I had, I know he was having some issues. So, oop, now we can't hear you at all. So I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Can't hear you.
Yeah, Prabhu, you're not audible. But Mataji, very nice class.
Thank you.
Very good points that we are the spark and we are the part and parcel of the Lord. So we just have the minute quality, and then but some people think that we are the God, and they get those mystic power and make money and fame out of it. So there are different kind of people, and very nice class you gave, and it reminded me of the Lord's universal form also from Bhagavad Gita. It's a beautiful chapter, like when Lord says, when Arjuna asked, show me your all the opulences, and I want to know more and more about it. And then he was explaining, and Lord said, I don't have any, the beginning or end or middle or So there are two kinds of, he was saying about it. Like one is about the size, like Lord, he's across all the planetary system, and then Lord, another way it reminded me of the Lord is like in terms of the time also. Like it's not like Lord existed 100 billion years ago and then he will be there for another 100 billion or something like that, but he's there for all the time.
Eternal.
So it's a very beautiful you described, and thank you, Mataji. Appreciate your class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, certainly the universal form is a great example of how Arjuna is asking, and in Bhagavad Gita it said that when Krishna shows his universal form, and Arjuna is asking to see that. Arjuna is asking not just for his own benefit, but for our benefit too, to prove that this is the supreme personality of Godhead here in front of him, that this isn't just some ordinary person. And so when Krishna really presents himself in the universal form, of course, Arjuna is completely overwhelmed by what he's seen. He's seen all the destruction and people flying into the mouth and teeth devouring. And it's a very almost horrific scene that Arjuna is experiencing. And so he said, please, let me see you in your form, your Narayan form. So he's, then Krishna comes down to the form of Narayan in the forearm form, but the universal form is there to kind of illustrate the potencies of God, it's really truly inconceivable. As you said, it's like there's no beginning, no end. Krishna is so inconceivable because that universal aspect of God is beyond anything that we could ever wrap our heads around. So, so that's really
Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly now, Mataji?
Yes. Oh, that's much better.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Manoj Prabhu, for your wonderful realization. Really appreciate it. I was thinking, Mataji, we talked about the love of the God. So what does it make the goal of the God, Krishna as the goal of the life? What makes one to choose the Krishna or God as a goal of life? What is that, makes one to go in that path?
Well, I think they have to have a desire. Something must have awakened in them something. So there's 4 different people that come to God: those in distress, those who need money, those who are intelligent, and those who are inquisitive. And so when oftentimes it will be one of those 4 things that really brings people to this desire to learn more about God. And so sometimes when we're in a state of distress, then we find ourselves in a situation where there's nothing materially that we can really lean on anymore to try and solve our problems. So we turn to a higher source. And people who have struggled with faith maybe just kind of throw their chips in, and they're saying, what do I have to lose? Right? What do I have to lose to just at least give this whole God thing a try and see if maybe I can start to understand this relationship and this whole God situation better. And so people who are in distress turn to God and say, okay, help me. And a lot of times, you see these small miracles that people experience when they're in distress. They pray to God, a small miracle will happen. And in my, very mundane perception of spiritual activities, I would say that God's probably saying, here you go. Now I'm here. Will you follow through after this? To say, to give them a little bit of an insight, a bit of divya chakshu, right? A little bit of that spiritual insight to say, God's here. This miracle has happened. But now that this has happened, are you going to stay with it? Will you make this a goal in your life to know more, to understand more? Will you follow through in a spiritual activity? Now, of course, those who are inquisitive, which are, it's said that those are the most dear to God, because those who really are inquisitive are wanting to know God because that's what they're wanting. They're coming to God through a natural desire to understand that relationship. And so I think those that have that natural inclination, there are people that you meet that are just drawn toward spiritual life. They go into the clergy, they are drawn toward maybe more of a celibate life in the priesthood, or being a nun, prayerful. There's some people that are just naturally drawn toward that path, that is naturally their goal. And for the rest of us, like including myself, then there's the, somehow in life, something shakes us up. And then we have to stay with it and say, okay, this just shaking me up. But when times are good, do we stay with it? Right.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Do we keep that as our goal?
Yeah. The people who are like naturally attracted, they are fortunate soul.
Very.
They don't have to make an effort in.
Yeah, but I'm sure they have their own difficulties in maintaining that, but they have that step forward, right? They have that extra, leg up in spiritual life. It's just maintaining it. And for someone like me that very much had to get knocked around in life a bit, to want something else, to say like, well, this didn't work for me, so I think I'm going to try this other thing here, and just start pursuing that avenue. And but it does require some consistency in our own mind of whether we want this goal or not. And that's just a decision. It's to decide that, do I feel enough benefit? Do I feel there's enough in there for me to continue to pursue this goal? Yeah. Right. And sometimes Krishna makes it difficult for us. He challenges us. Sometimes when we get further along in our spiritual life, Krishna will throw us for a loop, and he'll challenge us really hard and make us question everything. And that's Krishna basically saying, okay, well, you've gotten this far. Are you going to abandon ship? Or are you going to take this challenge as an opportunity to deepen your commitment to this path? And so, That's why they say, but fortunately, everything that we do, it's like the spiritual savings account, that even if we get hit hard with a challenge and we fall off for a bit, luckily everything we've done up until that point counts. It stays with us. But hopefully we see that any challenge that has been thrown in our path is really Krishna challenging us to say, now what are you going to do? So.
Yeah, I mean, challenges are always there. I think one of our process recommends is always staying connected with devotees and read Srila Prabhupada books, so that challenges may not hinder us or may not take us down.
Exactly.
So that will keep us connected and keep our inclination and our as like a takeaway. He was mentioning, what is in there for me? Why should I continue that? But if you are connected with sadhu sanghas like these classes, we are reading the book, so we realize the knowledge. Even though we have the difficulties coming along the way, this is part of this world. If we connected, we'll be taken care.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just have to maintain that faith, that shraddha. It is the first step, right? In the process of devotional service, we have shraddha, and so we shraddha, and then we have that sadhu sangha. Right.
Yeah.
And which helps us with an artha nivritti, which is really clearing, getting rid of those difficulties in our path, which then helps us establish over time, we get that ruchi, that taste. And once we get that ruchi, that taste, then that kind of hooks us, hopefully.
Yes.
It's
Wonderful.
like when you have a good piece of cake and you just want more and more and more, but we know that that's material, and eventually that gives us a tummy ache, right? But
that's the difference between spiritual and material. Spiritual, even though you get more, will not have any issue, because we will benefit it, and we will want to have more and more. But that's not true in this material world.
Exactly. So yes.
So nice points, and so much to learn. Thank you so much, Mataji. Does anyone has anything last moment question or any comment?
Great.
If not, we are 2 minutes after 9, so it's time for end. So we'll end with our Vaishnava prayer. Pancha kalpatarubhya kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Thank you so much, Mataji, finding time and enlightening us regularly. We really appreciate.
Thank you for your association. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
You too. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.